Welcome to Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino, live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app. And if you're watching on YouTube, we hope you hit subscribe. Today on the show, we'll have NHL picks from Tim Kalinowski and Jay Money's best bet in the NBA. But we start with NFL. Check out the Super Bowl odds movement from preseason to now for the four teams left standing. The 49ers were at plus 900, now the odds leader at plus 145. The Ravens were at plus 1800, now plus 200. The Chiefs started with the shortest odds of the bunch at plus 600, now at plus 350. And the Lions went from plus 2500 to plus 700. As we say hello to Chad Millman and Simon Hunter. So despite the 49ers having the toughest showing in the divisional round of the remaining teams, the books seem to think they're just fine. Chad, would you agree?
I'm not sure I would. It's hard to go against the Ravens. I'm surprised by a couple things in the way look-aheads are projecting right now, but the Ravens have had a dominant defense. They have the better quarterback. They have performed better in their one game sample set for the playoffs. It feels like, if anything, these should be exactly even right now. But I don't know. Ask me again after this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And, the Ravens looked the most dominant, having the second best odds, and they get the Chiefs. Simon, the Chiefs weren't too scary of a prospect for you last week, but did they scare you now?
They do a little bit at this number, right? At 3.5, it's a little scary going against them. But if you're able to get the 3 on the Ravens, I feel like you're feeling pretty good. Where it's like that feels like the right number. At 3.5, obviously I'm happy it moved up 3.5, because if it had gone down to 2.5 like last week, I'd be like, okay, we might be out of a problem here. But the fact that books have moved this up and they need Chiefs money, it's making me feel pretty good about Ravens bet. So look at the matchup. I mean, me and Chad are going to dive into it on our own show, but it really comes down to the defense for this Ravens team, right? They have the guys who can get the stops against this Chiefs team. The Bills just didn't have the guys. The Bills forced one punt the entire game. I don't see the Ravens playing that same way. So I'm not shocked the books have moved this to minus 3.5, especially with the liability they have now towards this Chiefs team, right? I think a lot of money came in on the Chiefs. They wanted the Chiefs to beat the Bills. I think that was their biggest liability of all futures. Now, they need the Ravens here to pull up this big win, just because so much money is coming on Mahomes for good reason, right? It's of all the quarterbacks left in the playoffs, who do you trust the most? It's got to be Mahomes. Like, it's a guy who's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. So I definitely regret betting against him last week, but I'm going to keep it going. I just think he's still overvalued, and I still think this number should be around 4. So if you are scared of 3.5, I actually still think there is value here on the Ravens.
Well, to that end, Chad, in terms of quarterbacks that you trust, typically you'd be betting on Mahomes as a dog and against Lamar as a favorite. So is this the time to buck those trends?
Look, the key to betting is understanding when the wave is going to crest and when you want to sort of be able to ride it and when it's about to tumble over you. And Simon and I have been trying to thread that needle on these trends of Lamar is a favorite of 3.5 or more, where he has not performed very well. About 174th out of 181 quarterbacks the past 20 years against the spread, when the number is higher than, is it 3.5 or higher? And Mahomes, look, as an underdog, he's now, after this past weekend, 9-1-1 against the spread. I think he's 7-3, 6-3 straight up. It's just a really good spot for the guy. So it's like Simon said, it's incredibly scary to bet against Patrick Mahomes. And it really is, honestly, I think it's going to come down to what the Ravens can do in their rushing game against this Kansas City Chiefs rush defense. That to me feels like the most key matchup.
All right. Well, Simon, you bet the Ravens. Now, if you think they are going to advance, would you also then bet Lamar as a Super Bowl MVP? He has the shortest odds right now at plus 250 or so.
You can. I'm one of those people that I bet the crazy random guys. I like betting the people don't think about. And, for my bet, I'll probably do something on the defensive side. Like I love Kyle Hamilton. He's been incredible this year. He's kind of guy that can turn the ball over. And, that's just the fun long shots I like to do, where if you wanted to play it boring and safe, yeah, go do Lamar. It's like no one would be shocked if he rushes for 2 touchdowns and has one throw and he wins Super Bowl MVP. I mean, he's been the best player in the Ravens all season. But for me, shout out to my guy Chris Raybon. I always look for the crazy long shots. A couple years ago, he gave out Julian Edelman. That's the dream. Like I want to hit a 50-1 Super Bowl MVP, like Julian Edelman one's year he won it. So for me, I've only made 2 bets on Super Bowl MVP so far, and one of them is Kyle Hamilton for the Ravens. The other one, it's a little more obscure. It's Goff with this Lions team, just in case the Lions do make it. I threw a little on him just because I believe I bet it at 20-1 for Super Bowl MVP. It's just crazy long shot odds for him to make it in the first place, but I feel like if he does get there, he'd be the reason the Lions would win the Super Bowl.
Nice. And he's currently at around plus 800. Now, Chad, what about you? You're not afraid to be boring, right?
No, I'm not afraid to be boring at all. So I would totally take Lamar Jackson. I would take Brock Purdy. I might take Christian McCaffrey. The other one that I would think about, it's interesting to me if you look at say the top 10 or 12 names on the futures board for Super Bowl MVP right now. There's, I think, there's 5 guys from the Niners. We're talking about Purdy. We're talking about McCaffrey. We're talking about Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Kittle, right? And so you're only talking about 2 guys on the Ravens. Top of the board is Lamar Jackson. The bottom of that top 12, Zay Flowers at 75-1. Sometimes, like Simon just noted, these receivers come out of nowhere and they make the plays, and Zay Flowers is the kind of talent and has the kind of speed, and he's becoming the #1 target for Lamar Jackson. So I might put a little tickle on Zay Flowers.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, if the Ravens do win it, it seems a lot more straightforward than if the 49ers were to go ahead and win the Super Bowl. All right, Chad Millman, Simon Hunter of the Favorites podcast. Thanks so much for joining the show. No shortage of storylines heading into the championship round. Lamar Jackson making his first appearance in the AFC Championship. It'll be Jared Goff's second NFC Championship game. The Chiefs will play in their 6th straight championship game. The 49ers, their 4th in 5 years. For more, we bring in Tim Kalinowski. So we want to talk through these storylines more in depth. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Which quarterback has more to prove in your mind, Lamar Jackson or Jared Goff?
Wow, Maria, this feels like a Skip Bayless type segment here. Like, what are we doing?
We're better than Skip. Stop.
We are. And I'm not going to throw away the same jersey for the 17th straight time. But anyways, I digress. I would say it's easy. It's Lamar Jackson here. In the way I kind of handicap this or look at it through the lens of, I think we'd be pretty shocked if Goff if Goff won a Super Bowl, right? But I think we're waiting for Lamar to win a Super Bowl. So I think that's kind of the dichotomy there. But the second place, Maria, it's Brock Purdy. And it's not because of him. He's already, overachieved when you consider where he was drafted, but it's because of Kyle Shanahan. And sometimes your legacy is tied to somebody else. I'm thinking of Bill Belichick here. That's the situation I see for Kyle Shanahan and his man, Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy.
See, I agree with you when it comes to Lamar because we already expect him to have been there at this point. He's already been an MVP, but I disagree on second place. First of all, the question was quarterback, and I still think it's Jared Goff because he literally made it to a Super Bowl and was still told he wasn't good enough. Like, that's such a big FU. So I just feel like he has more to prove at this point.
Fair enough. Well, I'm rooting for him, though. I'm rooting for him.
Well, that's good. Okay. What do the Chiefs need to do to solidify dynasty status, advance to the Super Bowl, or win a Super Bowl?
Another cop out here, Maria. I'm going to go neither because I think they're already there in this, modern NFL of, how difficult this is with An emphasis on, do you pay your quarterback? Do you not pay your quarterback? What does it do to the salary cap? You go to 6 straight AFC championships. You're the class of the field there. So I think they're already, on the precipice, I guess, of dynasty / already there. The question about their dynasty will be, if this year, if it falls flat at the end, what do they do at wide receiver? How do they, does Kelsey keep playing? Do they, retool? Because that's kind of like the New England thing where they went through that lull in the middle. The real test to me of the dynasty will be, how do they do it with, a ton of moving pieces? No Tyreek Hill, possibly Kelsey at the end, et cetera, et cetera. That, I think, will be the real question about what this question is trying to ask here.
I agree too. I think they're already dynastic, or maybe just on the cusp, being that they've been to 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls and won 2. And I think if they hadn't beaten the Bills last week, my answer would be different. But just because they've solidified that they're back, they're in it again, they won on the road in a true road environment, it's like, okay, they're still the Chiefs. Yeah. Okay. Next question. Which Super Bowl rematch, keyword, would be more exciting, the Chiefs against the 49ers or the Ravens against the 49ers? Now, the Chiefs beat the Niners in February 2020. Ravens beat the Niners in February 2013.
I'm going to go Ravens-Niners here because it was that Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's, whatever, that holiday game that they played. It was just, it was so exciting. And I feel like it kind of under-delivered just a little bit. Could have used a little more back and forth there. I think just the storylines of, is it time for Lamar? Is it time for Kyle Shanahan? The 2 number 1 seeds. I like when teams, I put a lot of pressure on teams to take advantage of the bye. Now that there's only 1 bye, like, live up to it, show us that you're fresh. And at this point in the season, so many of these teams, we forget, they get so banged up that by the time they get to the big game, it's like, a war of attrition. I would like to see, relatively healthy number 1s against each other. I think that gives us the best storylines.
It would be nice to see the 49ers get another crack at the Ravens after what happened on Christmas, but I actually think it's the other way, Chiefs Niners as the better overall rematch, just because that Super Bowl was, was more recent. It's fresh in everybody's minds. There are similar players, Shanahan versus Reed, Mahomes is still the quarterback for the Chiefs, and, there's some more holdover. So I think that as an overall Super Bowl rematch might be a little more interesting, to be fair.
I'll just interject with this, Maria. That Super Bowl, the Chiefs 49ers, I still have a sour taste in my mouth for the Patrick Mahomes rushing over when he jogged back about 15 yards and knelt it to what was an easy winner over, went under. That was my biggest bet on the game. I'm a little bit biased because I just can't wash that out of my hair.
Okay, fair enough. Now, for the most burning question of the bunch, we have to look at celebrity fans. Which team has the best celebrity fan? We got Stavros for the Ravens, T Swift for the Chiefs, or Eminem for the Lions.
Maria, there's someone on that list that should be very insulted at just the thought of this question. Okay, Taylor Swift. And I'll say this, it really bothers me how much of a problem people seem to have with all the Taylor Swift coverage. I just don't understand. What's the big deal? They cut to a camera shot, after a big play or whatever. I'm interested too. Hey, I wonder what Taylor's thinking. I wonder what she's up to. She's the most famous person in the building. And if it's no, I want my football. Give me my football. Oh, you don't think Tony Romo, ruins the football more than anyone? Oh, I just want my football. Oh, big field goal. I'm like, this guy won't shut up. Pick a fight with that instead of Taylor Swift, our darling. Okay.
Well, look, I'll say this, no one seemed to care that Jason Kelsey was being cut away too all the time with his shirt. It was quite entertaining. But in terms of, a team being linked to a celebrity fan, I agree. Taylor Swift is the biggest celebrity right now of the bunch. But in terms of a fan, to me, it's Eminem. I mean, not only is he, a huge celebrity, but he is Detroit. I mean, just that whole aura of Detroit, and they haven't been this far in the playoffs in like a million years, and he's been a fan and from Detroit the whole way. Like, I think in terms of being linked to a team, it's Eminem.
Well, they definitely have the award for the best meme, the one of like Eminem and 8 Mile, and it's like, Detroit rolling up to the Super Bowl or the conference championship. That's definitely the leader in the clubhouse for sure. So I understand.
Yeah. Mom spaghetti. They're going to be showing it. You watch. Well, okay. I think that's pretty much all the NFL storylines that we can handle right now. Let's move over to hockey, shall we?
The pucks. Let's talk the pucks.
Indeed. And take a look at how the Flyers are doing, already at 25 wins on the season after having just 31 wins total last year. They sit 4th in the Eastern Conference, only 4 points behind the New York Rangers, who are in first place in the Metropolitan Division. Now, the Flyers get a tough matchup tonight against the Lightning. What's your pick, Tim?
I'm on the Flyers here, Maria. Both teams are playing 3-4, and I've said it all season. The Flyers are about as good of a bet in the NHL for just an all-out effort, and it's certainly difficult when you're handicapping NHL games, 82 game season. The biggest question is always, will this team show up, and what version of this team are we getting? And I feel like Philadelphia has been, the best bet for them because they've overachieved so much. And I think that we're looking at, a coin flip type line here, but I still think Philadelphia is better. I think Tampa Bay's still being priced as, past Stanley Cup champion. The truth of the matter is Tampa Bay is not nearly as deep as they were in the last couple of years. Philadelphia, when you look at on paper, they're probably actually deeper than Tampa Bay, just without the star power. So I'm going to go Philadelphia here.
Well, their metropolitan rival, the Rangers, are also in action tonight against the Sharks, who have the league's worst record. So is this an easy bet on the Rangers?
It is. And I'll give credit to Nick Martin here. When I first saw the price, I said, I don't really know what I do with this. How do I, lay, minus 340 with the Rangers? But that's why we have a puck line. Rangers, to cover the puck line, minus 1.5. That's minus 126. You can find it. Truth of the matter is, this is a brutal spot for the San Jose Sharks. They just played LA last night. They actually won in a shootout. So, the Sharks get their first win and has many fingers as I have. It's been a tough season for the Sharks. The thing is, the Rangers, they're not overly impressive. They sit at the top of the league or towards the top of the league, a number of categories. But the big thing is here, bad spot for San Jose, and the Rangers always seem to, as poorly as they've played for some stretches, they take care of business against weaker teams. So I expect them to win by 2 or more goals on Tuesday night. And also this little road trip for the Sharks here, back to back, they went down to LA, then back up to San Jose. That's longer than people think. People think just because it's the same state, that's not that far. It's a big state.
Very big state. Second biggest, I believe, in the continental US. Now, Tim, that's going to do it. You're done. We've had enough of you. We appreciate the picks and the takes. Thank you.
I thought we were getting NFL, NHL, and then geography, but I'm glad you cut it off, Maria.
Had to cut it off. To the NBA and a couple of big nights on Tuesday, Joel Embiid set a new franchise record and career high with 70 points in the 76ers win over the Spurs, had 18 rebounds and 5 dimes as well. Karl-Anthony Towns also scored a career high 62, but the Timberwolves lost to the lowly Hornets. As we say hello to our NBA expert, Jay Money. All right, my first question is about the 76ers. Is there something different about them this year? Because I've been as big a Joel Embiid skeptic as anyone, and I'm not going to believe that he's going to stay healthy in the playoffs until I see it. But there's something, tell me if I'm wrong, it feels a little different this year.
Well, obviously, they finally got them a real coach over there at Nick Nurse, so that's really changed a lot of things. But don't look now; they're one of the only 3 teams in the NBA that are top 5 in offensive and defensive rating. So, in my opinion, that's the biggest difference. But you also have to pair that with Nick Nurse as well. Obviously, he's a huge upgrade from Doc Rivers over there. But when you anybody can play offense. Defense wins championships. I'm a firm believer of that, and they got the right personnel in there to play defense. So I think that's the main difference there, Maria. They're very balanced this year.
And just a quick follow-up on the MVP conversation, because maybe I don't have long-term memory, but it feels like Joel Embiid is playing even better this year. than he did last year. He's now on the leaderboard at plus 120. Nikola Jokic is at plus 300, SGA at plus 375. But then you got to consider how many games he's missed at 10 already. So what do you make of the MVP race at this moment?
Yeah, I was just saying before, so that'd be pretty crazy if we get, because obviously Jokic won back-to-back MVPs and Embiid won last year, and then if he wins it again this year, there will be 4 straight years that that a center has won MVP in the NBA. It'd be absolutely crazy. But I mean, when you're having 70-point games, it's hard not to make him a favorite. I know that I'm a firm believer of not moving the odds of one game, but I mean, when you're out there scoring 70 and he's on an insane run as well, you kind of have to move the odds after that. But you always worry about his health. I remember we had Matt Moore on the show talking about how they play a lot of road games, a ton of road games for the rest of the season. And we know that Joel Embiid doesn't really like to play in those back-to-backs, especially versus lowly teams. But if he really does want to win the MVP, maybe he'll start to really gun for it, because we know versus the lowly teams like the Spurs, those are the teams which you can really stat pad. And that's what we're starting to see from Embiid. So he only has 7 more games of like a comfort zone. He can only miss 6 more games. The 7th one, it doesn't matter how good of a season he's having, Maria, he will not be in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, and I'm going to stand by what we said on the show recently. Wait, because in my opinion, there's very little chance that he doesn't miss at least a couple more games, and then his odds should sort of tick back up. And I still am just not a fan of this game minimum rule, because if you legitimately are unhealthy, like say he's 1 game under that 65 game minimum and he's, you know, having games like what we just saw last night, like you should still be able to factor that in, and voters were factoring that in anyway. But I digress. Okay, I want to touch on the T-Wolves real quick before we get your pick. What is the main thing that could hold them back from winning the West? Because it just seems like people don't really believe that they can go that far.
Yeah, so I am a T-Wolves believer. This team has made me a lot of money over the past 2 or 3 seasons, but I mean, come on, they're not the #1 team in the West. We do know that. And I just feel like games like last night versus the Charlotte Hornets really show that. I don't care if Karl-Anthony Towns is going off regardless. Like when you got Anthony Edwards that has 0 points through the first 3 quarters, things like that can't happen. I know that Michael Conley was out and he was trying to play point guard, but that just can't happen. They're just not taking these games serious versus the bottom feeders, and I think that's what separates them from teams that's like the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers, because when they're going up against these bad teams, they'll try to smoke you by 30 points in the first half and then just kind of rest their guys in the second half. So they just kind of show, and you're at the house, Maria. It's 15.5-point favorites. You can't lose games like that to the Charlotte Hornets, who we know aren't necessarily like, it's like winning isn't in their best interest. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it just can't happen. Have to have more discipline than that. Okay, looking at the slate tonight, why don't you tell us what you like and what you're betting?
Yeah, I'm on the Pelicans in the first half, -3.5 tonight. This is a major bounce back spot for the Pelicans here. Obviously, they allowed Devin Booker to go crazy on him. He had 52 points. I believe he had like 45 through 3 quarters. He was all over them. And the Pelicans are actually like, they hang their hat on the defensive end here. They got shredded by the Suns. They were down 20 in the first quarter. And the Pelicans here, I mean, this play makes a ton of sense. They're the 3rd best team in the NBA in the first half against the spread at 15-6 against the spread. What are the Jazz? They're the second worst team in the NBA in the first half on the road at 7-16 against the spread. So you just got one team that plays really well at the house in the first half versus one team that plays really poor in the first half on the road. I'll back the New Orleans Pelicans here in the first half, -3.5. Fly, Pelly, fly.
That is a money matchup from Jay Money. Thank you so much. Always enjoy chopping it up with you on the NBA.
Anytime, Maria.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Dellera, and I've got a couple of my favorite plays for this Tuesday NBA slate. The first game and the first pick that we are going to be looking at is the New York Knicks versus the Brooklyn Nets. And we're going to be taking the Knicks -4, -4.5, -5. In this crosstown rivalry, I expect the Knicks to really dominate in this matchup. They've been the significantly better team on the season. Although they might be without Isaiah Hartenstein tonight, the defense has still held up in the minutes with Precious Achiuwa and OG Anunoby as they kind of bring over a little bit of that Raptors rapport with them. And when they are both on the floor, the Knicks have a plus 17.8 point differential so far this season. Although Brooklyn has seemed to improve defensively of late, it looks a lot like noise though, because the shot profile that they're allowing has not changed at all, just the results over the last 2-week period. The Knicks also just love to beat up on bad teams. So I like the Knicks to cover the spread at -4, -4.5, -5. I like any of those numbers. The next pick in the next game that we're looking at is the other TNT game, and that's James Harden and the Los Angeles Clippers against the Los Angeles Lakers, who are going to be without LeBron James today. And I like James Harden to go over 8.5 assists and to record a double-double, and you can grab that at plus money. Harden's been incredible lately, and over his last 15 games, he's averaging 9.7 assists per, and he's exceeded this 8.5 line in 11 of 15, and he's had 10 plus in 8 of 15. Not having LeBron's size should make it a bit easier for the Clippers to finish on Harden's passes. I like him to exceed 8.5 assists tonight, and I'll also play some double-double. I like that as opposed to the 10 plus assists because it gives us another out, and the odds are about the same or right around the same spot anyway. So I like double-double in this matchup. Finally, we're looking at the Utah Jazz versus the New Orleans Pelicans, and we're taking a prop for Simone Fontecchio to go over 13.5 points, rebounds, and assists. He's been excellent for the Utah Jazz, and he's started to see his minutes climb each month of the season as he earned a starting role. In 26 games as a starter, he's averaging 10.9 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 2.1 assists per game in 28.1 minutes. And over his last 10 games, he's exceeded this 13.5 PRA line in 8 of them, while averaging 14.7 PRA. I like this matchup against the Pelicans as well. He should see plenty of run considering he's really their only starting wing. And if the PRA market's not available to you, my pivot would be to over 3.5 rebounds, and you can grab that at plus money. So to recap, my 3 favorite plays for this Tuesday NBA slate are the New York Knicks against the spread -4.5, -5, James Harden over 8.5 assists and a double-double, and Simone Fontecchio over 13.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Best of luck on your wagers today, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays.
Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. That's going to do it for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.